Welcome to Lindeman Outdoors. Join Buckshot and Iceman Lindeman as they celebrate God's beautiful creation through fishing, hunting, and outdoor adventures. It's time to fill the freezer and enjoy the great outdoors the way it was meant to be. Welcome to Lindeman Outdoors. We have a special guest today with Scheels. Mike, and I believe you have your own podcast as well, or you run the Scheels one, the outdoors one.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, so if you haven't heard that one, go check that one out. We'll get a link down below for you. And yeah, we really appreciate you coming out. We're gonna talk kind of fishing stuff. We're gonna recap kind of a turkey season. You had a good turkey season as well. We talked about ours in the previous episode, so we don't need to get into that. But yeah.
Oh yes, we do.
Well, we'll get into it. We'll get off topic in a real hurry.
Absolutely, I love talking turkey.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah. Well, that might be the whole podcast then. But yeah, explain to us and our audience. Introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into turkeys. So.
Yeah, for sure. My name is Mike Anderson. I handle the outdoor social media portion for Scheels. So Scheels Outdoors. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. So basically, I get to talk hunting and fishing every day. So it's not a bad gig.
It's a pretty good gig if you ask me.
Yeah, that's nice.
We do this once a week. I wish we could do it every day.
Yeah, we. So a little bit about us, Mike. We're so Jacob's my son, so we're father son. So like we've been ever since I could carry him out there. He's been in the outdoors. We've been hunting and fishing. Kind of one of our things is we bow hunt, but at the same time we roll through the seasons of. If it's walleye season, we're going to be out, ice fishing or out on the water. We usually put the boats away about the middle of July, and we start looking out west for where we're going to go. That's early archery season. We'll roll right through the bow season. If we get rifle tags, we'll use a rifle, and then we'll go back to ice fishing in the turkey season, and then back to walleye season. So we just kind of. We roll through the seasons. We do a little bit of everything. You'll hear us. We talk some smack sometimes about the only way to catch bass is on top water, and that we just to kind of get people riled up and have a little fun with them. But we love all types of fishing. That's kind of the funny part is that we love hunting and fishing, and we've been, like I said, we've been going. One of our highlights is when we get to Grand Forks or Fargo, wherever we go to Scheels. And we, start cruising the aisles to see, all right, what do we need? What's new? What's out there? So we really appreciate having you on and just a little history about us. So.
Absolutely appreciate that. And yeah, just being in this area, that's the way it goes. There's always something to catch or something to chase, and there's always some sort of season, whether it's turkey season or early fishing or food plot season or turning into hunting season. They tend to overlap a little more than a guy would like, but it definitely keeps you busy.
Yeah, it's hard to choose which one to do, and it seems like with us, we miss out on a lot of the early fishing because we love turkey hunting so much. But then once we get the tags filled, we're hurry up, we're trying to get the boat ready, and then we hit the walleyes pretty hard. So Jacob said you had a pretty good early turkey season?
Yeah, I did have a great turkey season this year. So I was fortunate enough to draw a tag in North Dakota near the Fargo area, and I grew up in Minnesota. So I basically got my lifetime hunting licenses, and then I hopped over the river, and now I hunt both states each year. But I've got a few pretty good properties for turkey, and started out in North Dakota, and I brought my 5-year-old daughter out, and that was an adventure. So
yes.
She is very spunky, doesn't like to stay quiet very much. So it was our first time out, so I had fairly low expectations. I just want to go out and introduce her to it and just have some fun. So basically, set up the decoys like 7-8 yards from the blind. Make sure that we're in a blind. So we
gotta have a blind.
A little bit. Yeah, when you're hunting with kids, have to have a blind.
Have to have a
Regardless of
blind.
what weapon, you got to have a blind. Got to
Yep.
have snacks. Got to
Yep.
have something for them to drink, and just ways for them to, kind of keep their composure a little bit. But it started out a little dicey because like we put the blind out. It was just an evening hunt and got everything set up. And she's like, "Dad, where's the snacks? Hey, can I blow on the turkey call?" Oh man, it was like
That's what I was just
so
gonna
loud,
ask. I was
so
like,
much
did you?
movement. She fell out of her seat, knocked some
boy.
stuff over. Like when she was looking out the window, like peeking her whole body out there. I'm like, this is
Yep.
it'd be
Typical.
a minor miracle if this happens. But got some snacks and she managed to stay quiet for a little bit. And I peeked out one of the side blind windows and there was a nice tom strutting at like 50 yards. So I was like, oh my gosh, this might actually happen. And it kind of strutted around there for a little bit, and I was like, Ava's her name. I'm like, Ava, peek out the window, and she like starts looking to the side a little bit, and then as soon as she saw the turkey, her eyes got just as big as saucers. And we had like kind of prepped over what happens when a turkey comes. It's like I was using a shotgun at this point, so I'm like, okay, Ava, you need to make sure to keep in the seat. And when I start raising that gun, you put your hands in your ears and stay totally still. And the turkey strutted for a little while and kind of went behind this little like hill, and it was still only 50 yards or so. And I started purring at it, and that was all it took because I had 3 decoys out. I had one hen just in like kind of like a looking around, like an alert pose kind of. And then the other one I had sitting down on the ground, and I had a half strut Jake over the top of it.
Deadly.
And after I purred a little bit, that tom couldn't handle it. It just, boom, beeline right for that decoy. And I was so excited after like I got the gun up and I saw Ava had her fingers in her ears and was ready to go. I didn't even let it like break strut. I just blasted it at 7 yards, and
Nice.
and then we were just like high-fiving, and she was so excited, and it was one of the coolest experiences ever. Because like I love turkey hunting, I love shooting turkeys, but like seeing it through the eyes of your kid is like something really special. Which Jeremy, I'm assuming you can relate to. And
Yeah, my favorite memories of hunting, and I've shot a lot of deer. I've shot a lot. I mean, I've shot elk, shot everything. But my favorite years are with the youth season with the kids, and it's just weird how looking back, even some of the hunts. Jacob and I had a tremendous turkey hunt this year, but there's something about them first years of getting them out there in the blind with you, and and eventually, she's going to get her first turkey, and I mean you're going to be more excited when that happens than anything that you've ever had happen to you. I can guarantee it.
absolutely.
And I miss it looking back. So I'm now on the other side of the coin where I'm going to be getting grandkids here coming up soon. So I'm hoping to, take them out. So I'm going to have to wrestle Dad to see who gets to take the kids out. But we'll see how that goes.
Well, one can run the calls and one can run a camera.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll run the calls.
Yeah, he's pretty good with the calls. I'm getting there, but sometimes whenever we're together, I'm like, nah, you just take it.
I want to back up a second because, you gave some key points there to, I think, why your hunt was so successful. Number one, you had the snacks in the ground blind. That's number one. Even when you're older, even like Jacob and I, even though my son's 25, we had to have snacks when we were out hunting together. Otherwise, he gets antsy. He wants to go in too soon. But you talked about, your decoy setup, which is the same setup that we run. And then you talked about, too, how that turkey was at 50 yards. And I think a lot of hunters get to that spot, and then you'll hear them say, oh, he wouldn't come in. He was just strutting out there, and he wouldn't do this. And then you talked about how you gave that little purr, that clucking and purring at that moment. And that's kind of actually how we shot our birds, too, in South Dakota here. We'd seen them out in the field. Same type of deal. I gave them a couple clucks, just a few purrs, and here they come. They just come. They hear. It's like a reassuring of like, oh, yep, that's my girls over there talking, and I got to go kick the crap out of this guy who's trying to move in on them.
Yeah, Yeah, that soft talk can really draw them in from that, just hanging up outside of range to fully committing. So, and
Yep.
there was still probably a solid hour before it was going to go to find where it was roosting. So I was like, time's on my side right now.
Yeah.
Like, let's just wait. Let's take your time, make this happen. Like, a lot of my unsuccessful turkey hunts have been due to like rushed things.
Yes.
So,
Patience kills turkeys.
sometimes like the circumstances call for pushing the envelope a little bit, but oftentimes I have found that my failures are due to lack of patience, especially when it goes to like mule deer hunting in the Badlands or something
Yeah.
like that. I have too many stories for this podcast of trying to be too aggressive versus like really trying to control the situation and take your time and make that stuff happen.
Yeah. Jacob. Oh, we're freezing up a little there.
No, I've
Jacob has PTSD from the Badlands of all the deer he's missed out there.
Oh my gosh, there was a
That's
there
what
was a
keeps
good,
you hungry, though.
there was a 3-year stretch where I had one big one have its poke its head around a pine tree and just stare at me. Just I don't know, it got me. I had one this is before I got a new bow. That was at 80 yards, and my bow only went to 60 at the time. And I had another one that I kind of busted me, and then I was first time I ever rattled a deer in. All of a sudden, it took a beeline, like basically almost rushed me, and gave him to 40 yards, and I was sitting there with the antlers in my hands, not my bow, which was on the ground.
Oh,
Yeah, and they were like the 3 of the biggest deer I've ever seen. Were those 3 deer that I never got a chance, and they haunt me to this day.
yeah.
He left out some key details there. The reason he didn't get that buck that poked around the tree is because he was going to shoot the smaller buck that was to the other side of him.
Yeah,
That he was
there was a
looking at.
small 6-pointer at 20 yards broadside, little basket rack looking at me, and I just wasn't paying attention to the main trail.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One of my big problems is I try and close the distance too much. Like there was 2 certain instances of that. Well, one of them was a really big velvet one. Like he wasn't super wide, but he was just like skyscraper tall. And he was bedded down, and I could just see the tips of his antlers. And so I was like, oh, this is a perfect situation. Like, okay, let me back a little bit. I can get this tree between us. Then I can close the distance to like 80. And then from 80, I can slide down this ravine and keep all this brush. Like, I can see him because I can see the tops of the tines. But I can get down there. And then I got to like 40. And I was like, okay, I just need him to get up. And I waited for him to get up for an hour and a half, and then it started getting dark. So I was like, all right,
What do you do?
I have great topography in between us. He cannot see me, so let me just get a little bit closer. And I ended up getting to like 20, and then by the time I got to 20, and I was like, okay, I'm going to start pulling back, and then I'll make a noise and see if he'll get up. And he caught me like mid-draw, and he flipped around. And I could see his eyes like staring into my soul at 20 yards, and I'm at like half draw. And it's like, I should have stayed at 40. This was my mistake. And of course, when he got up, he went straight away, so I never got a shot. And then 2 years ago, another similar situation. Like I was glassing this area, and I saw these 2 bucks come into like a deep ravine. And there was only 2 ways out. It was right under me, and it was up the edge. And I waited for like 20 minutes, and then nothing got out, and it was like noon. So I was like, they're there. So, okay, let me get the wind in my favor. Let me get to a spot where either direction they go, I'm going to have a chance. And I did that. I made that loop, and there was like 2 paths I could take. One of them is to go like right over the ravine, and the other one was like to give me about a 40-yard shot. And I picked the 40-yard shot right away. And I got to that spot, and I was like, man, I can't see nothing. So I backtracked, and I went to right over the ravine, and I was looking around in there, and it was a lot narrower than I anticipated. And when I'm creeping over the edge, I heard tines hit brush directly below me, and I'm like, oh God, I have one of them like under my feet. So I just froze, and like it was light winds that day, and when the wind would quit, I could hear this deer breathing below.
Oh, jeez.
I'm like, okay,
Right
and,
under
and
you.
one of them was okay. He was probably, we'll call him like, I don't know, 140 class muley,
Mhm.
but the other one was like 180s, and
Oh,
that
yeah.
was like, I want him. He looks like he belongs on the cover of an Outdoor Life magazine.
Yeah.
And I have him at probably 15 yards or less, or like depending on which one it is, because like I assume the smaller one was the one that came in first, was like right below me, and I had sat there for like an hour and a half, and I was finally like, I need to make something happen. So I like crept down to grab a rock, and like I didn't make any noise or anything, and like they were below me, so they couldn't see me. But the only thing I could think is the wind swirled enough, and my odor was like low enough to the ground where they sniffed something. But they bolted out of there, and like I pulled back, and that big one just never gave me an opportunity. So I was basically like crying as I was watching him run away. But it's just another case of like, be patient, Mike. You have all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that the people that say that, oh, mule deer are dumb and they're not hard to hunt, I'm like, yeah, you've never tried to archery hunt and put a spot and stock on a mule deer before, because
Yeah, for
them
sure.
old bucks are so wise. And then out there, they'll bed where they can use, those thermals to they're there for a reason. They're there because that thermal is going, in the morning it's coming down to them. They can smell everything that's up above, and in the evening they'll wait till that thermal switches, and then they'll start heading out. They have everything in their favor. They're so hard to kill out there in that territory.
Yeah, they are, but man,
So much fun.
so much fun. Yeah, I
Okay.
grew up in Minnesota whitetail hunting, and I didn't get a taste of mule deer until, maybe 10 years ago, and I've been just addicted ever since. It's so fun.
Yeah, and then you're talking about that 40-yard range. There's something about that too. I think because of how well their hearing is, that if you get under that 40, it's almost like you can't move at all. Like they'll hear you just moving your arm or drawing. They got those big ears, and they'll sit there where they can smell everything that's behind them, and they can see everything that's in front of them. They're
Yeah.
just so tough to get.
Yeah. I've yet to get a muley, but we've stocked a bunch of them, but we've just, yeah.
Yeah,
It's-
we've shot a few, and we seen a deer like you're talking about the last time we were out west. We spotted him with the spotting scope from probably a mile and a half, almost 2 miles away, and you could still see his rack. He was huge.
Yeah, gotta love those ones where it's
Oh,
like,
my gosh.
no doubt in your mind that's a big deer, even from
Yeah.
like a mile away.
Oh yeah. You could see like his body, then you could just see just out of
Yeah,
his
he
head.
was
You're like,
massive
Yeah,
deer.
let's go that way.
Yeah.
Get in the truck.
I had been in a fishing mindset since turkey was over, but now I'm just like zoned into hunting.
It's creeping in.
Yeah.
That's what
It's
I'm
getting
noticing
there.
too. I'm like, I caught some walleyes, and now I've just been. Well, I just applied for all my tags in South Dakota for the year, and we'll hunt Minnesota too, and we hunt North Dakota. So we bow hunt North Dakota primarily. Jacob lives there, but
Yeah.
so we. It's just like, okay, what tags am I gonna get? Oh, we gotta make a trip to, do some scouting, put some cameras out. And we like to run the cell cams, Tacticams. We've been having good luck with those.
Yeah, Tacticam's a great one. They're actually just coming out with a new one, the
No.
Reveal Ultra.
Okay.
So,
Don't tell
yeah,
him that.
there's some cool
Buy
new
4 of
features
them.
they got. They have a toggle between low glow and no glow. So depending on where you want to put it, like if you want to go like no glow, if you're right on top of a trail, but if you got it on like a food plot, you can toggle it to low glow. They also have internal GPS features that's independent of the batteries. So like say you're on public land and you want to put one out there,
Yep.
and somebody ends up stealing your camera, it happens. But
Yep.
that the internal GPS will stay on for weeks. So if you see your camera gets jacked, you can track it.
Nice.
So yeah, that's a huge feature. And then they also have a live mode too. So like at any time you can switch to live mode and you can watch what's going on. So say like you got nothing going on in the evenings, like, well, do I want to watch the Twins lose again, or do I want to watch my food plot and see
Yeah.
what's going out?
Oh my gosh, I'd have been.
Yeah,
I see
that's
a problem in my future coming up, an addiction. I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's easy to get hooked into that stuff, so it's just
Yeah.
it's so beneficial to have like the stuff coming to your phone, but then at the same time it's quite a curse because it's like, oh, I'm sitting in a meeting and all of a sudden the cam's digging off. It's like I am not paying attention to what's going on now. I want to know what's going on my camera.
Yeah.
that was my worst and most hated thing ever. Was I played college football, and I'd be in college. I'd get back from workouts, and I'd grab my phone, and it'd either be he would send me trail camera pictures of deer that were out when I was running, or he'd send me a photo of him holding a deer. I'm like, yeah, this is great. I love playing football. Well, there's deer season.
There's been a couple days where a trail cam photo went off, and I'm like, I'm heading to North Dakota. We will see all you guys later. I gotta go. The
Yeah.
bucks are daylighting, and I gotta be out there.
That's such a
Yeah.
just like I feel like I saw a thing online the other day. I was like, what has been like in the last 10 years like the biggest innovation in hunting? And like people are saying like different broadheads and the bows and stuff. I'm like, trail
Trail
cameras,
cams for sure.
the
Yeah,
live, the getting
The
alerts on your
advancements of
phone.
trail cameras is huge. I've got a couple of other ones too. Well, one it's another trail camera. It's the Stealth Cam Revolver. Have you used those yet?
Nope.
Okay, those are 360-degree cellular cameras. So basically, they'll have, I think it's 6 different zones. So basically, you'll put it in like a food plot or like a grazing or like a staging area or something where you like they're not just coming on this defined trail. Like they're in the area. I don't know exactly where they're coming from. Then basically like it'll tell you which zone gets triggered, and then you'll get the picture of that. Because oftentimes, like I've found that a deer will come in like often a younger buck, and then say there's like the 3-year-old comes in, and then the 5-year-old is staying back, and you never get a picture of that 5-year-old unless you get him on like with a spotting scope or something like that. And it's like, oh, that deer exists, he's alive. Like this camera does an excellent job of covering like secondary areas where mature bucks might come, and you just get an entire like 360-degree picture of your area versus like your 45-degree picture of like a normal camera. Because like I oftentimes like say North Dakota where it was legal to bait, like I'd put like a corn pile down to get an inventory, and I'd put a camera right on it. Oftentimes I would put a second camera like in an area where like if I was a monster buck that was afraid to look at that but wanted to know what was going on, I'm going to put a camera here to look at and watch this. And oftentimes I would get the big deer on that other camera, and I would never get it on the one that would come into the like some just don't come into bait, or some just don't come into certain areas. Like they get that big for a reason, but like this camera will catch that. So it's super cool. I've talked with like there's other guys in like the buying office that had tested this out and shown stories like this deer came from an area that I had no idea like he was going to be, but he's 40 yards from my blind, so like if I was there I could have shot him, but like I never would have even had him on my radar if it wasn't for this camera. So that's a really cool one.
Yeah, that'd be like really cool for like those little, those little poor man plot. Those like
Yeah, your
where-
little micro plots.
Yeah,
It's
where they're, like, in the
perfect for
woods
that,
about
'cause
40
you can
yards.
cover the whole thing.
and the deer just kind of like we had I had one spot that it was close to our place. I used to drive my little four-wheeler to after school. That was like off of the big grain field of it were soybeans or whatever, and then it was like 40, 50 yards into the woods, and the deer, there wasn't an exact trail. Sometimes they'd come from the front, sometimes they'd come from behind you, sometimes they'd come right underneath. Most of the time they'd come from the left, but and we had the one camera just pointing down the middle, and you never knew exactly unless they were facing a certain direction which way they're coming from.
Yeah, exactly. And I have been like taking my older cameras that are like non-cellular, and then I'll put secondary ones out. But then you have to go out. You have to put more scent in that area. You have to check them. You don't have that like instant feedback. So it's like that system's okay, but it's not perfect. But once you use one of these revolvers, it's like that does kind of change the game.
Yeah,
For sure.
That's crazy.
And then another one I have to say is ozonics. Like ozonics has
Yeah.
literally changed the way that I've hunted. So like
Yeah.
I remember that there was this one area in specific that was a perfect example. It was like I have this 5-acre bean field in like next to this river bottom, and there's two big draws where the deer would come out of, and there's this river, and it's like a very, very steep bank. So it's like, okay, I can cross this river, I can pop into this and then hunt it with the wind blowing over the river. No deer will ever know I'm there. So it's great in theory. But the problem is the deer didn't feel safe going into that field because they couldn't smell anything. So I noticed like I would look at my trail cameras, and then I would match up like what the wind was doing, and it's like I would see 10 deer in front of my camera one night, and I'd see 30 in front of it in another, and it coincided with the nights where it was blowing into the bedding area, so all the deer could scent check it and they'd feel perfectly comfortable in this field. But you can't hunt it, it's like they're going to smell you from a mile away. But what we did was we put a tower blind up in there and then opened one window and run the ozonics out that.
Yep.
So like you get in there in the middle of the day and then, open the one window, run the ozonics, you are literally invisible to these deer. I had like 30 at a time directly downwind of me. Like I could not have gotten away with that any other situation.
Yeah, that's how we beat the deer out in western North Dakota in those river bottoms. And, we'll hunt out of a tree saddle. And before the ozonics, we would get busted. I mean, like they'd be blowing, we'd even have the wind the right way. But the wind will not overpower those thermals. You think it would. I'm like, geez, this wind is just blowing out of the west 20 miles an hour. There's no way the thermals are going to get me. And, as soon as that sun starts to drop, that air just gets heavy and it just falls down. Well, and before we get busted, and then I had the ozonics, and all of a sudden now I got old matriarch does walking right past me at 40 yards. And they were the ones that would pick you off.
You have to fool first.
Exactly. And then I remember, this is many years ago, I was listening to a podcast with Will Primo's on there, and they weren't even sponsored by ozonics, and they were using them, the whole Primo's team. And I was like, all right, that's all I needed to hear.
Yeah, exactly. They have a deer or two under their belt in that team.
Yeah.
If they're using it and not promoting it.
Yeah, they weren't even, at that time, I don't know if they're sponsored by them or promoting them now, but at that time they were not. And they were buying them themselves and using them, and I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, to the average hunter that looks and is like, man, $400 some bucks for a little machine that spits out ozone, like it's a tough sell. But once you actually see it, you won't go into the woods without it.
No.
Well, I've seen it like in person where we've hunted the same field, and I've had the wind, and he's been in the worst wind, downwind of the deer, and he's had the ozonics and I have not. And even they've gotten, once they get close, I've had a big doe get really close, and when they get that close base of your tree, they can smell you. But I've watched deer walk past him, and the wind is blowing right into them. And I'm like, he doesn't smell that good. I mean, I know who he is. He's kind of a stinky guy. Like,
yeah,
3-4 days in the
You
woods.
got a little corn deodorant on or something?
Yeah, so I like to, but like you were talking about how you notice the deer, they want that certain wind. Well, big buck's that same way. They want that certain wind, and you almost have to set up at that point where your wind is almost wrong, but that's that risky wind that you got to set up on, that where you get that point where the buck is coming and you're kind of over here, and then when you have the ozonics, you can get away with that a little more.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that buck wants that wind in his favor, and like you said, usually you can't hunt it, but
it's
you
that
can with
game of
ozonics.
how much risk can you get away with?
There's times I've been set up. I'm like, well, I hope the big buck comes through first, because it's that seems to be the of where you, like you said, you watch trail cameras, you watch how they move. You got to be in that spot. So, but yeah, and the other thing too, like we just talked about, is tree saddles. boy, they help us out in the Dakotas where they don't grow a straight tree out here.
No,
It doesn't seem
absolutely.
like you get a good set of steps. I think we
Sometimes
bought,
you're 2 feet off the ground and it helps.
yeah, yeah. There's
Just
sometimes
climb a
we're
limb or
only 8,
two.
9, 10 feet up. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, sometimes that's all you have to be. But yeah, I'll vouch for tree saddles too, 100%. It just opens up a new playing field when it comes to where you can sit. Because like it's, if I have a chance to be elevated, I'm gonna be elevated. It gives you an advantage, whether it's like, with the wind or with visibility or both. And like you said in the Dakotas, it's hard to find a good straight tree. Like a climber is basically worthless in North Dakota.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of times where it's like, I know I want to be in this area, I want to be in this specific tree, because then I can get 40 yards away from my shot that I think I'm gonna have. But it's like, okay, no, I don't have a tree that works. Now I got to be 60 yards off, and I have to be that much more comfortable with my shot. Like when we're talking 20, 30 yards in archery, like that makes a big difference.
Yep.
So just being able to get into the spot on the spot with a saddle is huge. Plus they're comfortable too. Like as long as you get used to shooting out of one, like you can sit in one all day. So
Yeah.
it takes a little while to get used to shooting out of one though. I remember I went the first time, like I just put it up in my yard the first time, and I shot my first shot and I missed the block. I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, I have to realize like where I'm at with my anchor points and things
Very
like
important.
that. So you get that saddle, make sure to get comfortable putting it up in the dark so you know what you're doing,
Yeah.
and shooting out of it. Because like you could be in the perfect spot, you can get that opportunity, but if you've never shot out of the saddle before, like it's likely not going to be the same shot you normally do when you're sitting on the ground or when you're standing at the archery range.
Yeah. Like
Yeah, you gotta learn to lean your knee into the tree and kind of brace yourself, and
Yeah,
like you said,
it's
get
like
your torso
making
up.
sure- Yeah, making sure you have that right anchor point in different situations.
and you're gonna be leaning weird, and like your level is like, it's always important, but in a saddle it's like the most important thing. I mean, just even because I shot last year I had one of my favorite stories that I had a buck coming in, and it was at 40 yards, but like perfect shot. I was in a saddle and I was kind of like lean way back to shoot this angle, and a group of coyotes came and scared the deer away. And so North Dakota, I whistled, and then the one coyote turned its head and I shot it right between the eyes with my bow, just out of anger. I was like, ugh, bastards scared away my deer. It wasn't a huge deer, but like it was a velvet, big 6-pointer. I was like, yeah, I'm taking this one.
Jacob's Fred Eichler. If you haven't
Fred
picked
Eichler's
up on
my
that yet,
idol.
he's not a trophy hunter. Him and I am like, let these little deer go, and he's like, no, I want to shoot this one.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Everybody has their own hunting journey, and if you want to wait for a 4-year-old, go for it. If you want to shoot the first one that comes in, whatever gets your heart pumping and gets you really excited, that's the one you want to shoot.
And
I
for
love
Jacob,
that.
that's every deer.
It's every deer.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Hey, good for you, man.
Yeah, that's
Good for
right.
you.
Yeah.
I've found that I have different goals depending on like different states, different areas,
Yes.
stuff like that. 'Cause,
Yes.
like Minnesota, I've shot enough like 2 and 3-year-old 4x4s or 8-pointers, whatever you want to call them, that it's like, man, I should have let him get another year older. So now it's like, okay, I set a personal goal, like I'm not going to shoot a deer unless it's 4 years old on our personal property that we
Yep.
can't necessarily manage, but like we know the neighbors, so like we kind of have an understanding of like you're likely not going to shoot it unless it's at least 3. Like for me, it's at least 4. So then you start getting better numbers and stuff. But then North Dakota in the Badlands, archery mule deer, like it depends. Like if I only have 10 days to hunt, I'll probably hold out for a big one until day 7, and then after that it's like shooting any mule deer with archery equipment
Yes.
is a feat in itself. So,
Especially
I
in the
mean, I'm gonna
Badlands.
I'm gonna send it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then you just like getting those stocks under your belt is such a big thing too, because it's like,
Mhm.
okay, if I spend 3 years like knowing I'm not going to shoot anything under 170-inch mule deer, like when you have that one pop out, it's like, oh, what do I do now? I haven't got to this situation yet.
Right.
You know, I've often found myself like putting on stocks on animals I don't intend to kill just to make sure that I know like I'm ready
Mhm.
for certain situations, and that's helped a lot. So you still get the same fun. It's like,
Yep.
you know, you can pull back your bow and you'd be like, yeah, I would have got you.
Yep. Exactly.
You're
Yeah.
lucky.
Mhm.
So we were kind of talking about hunting a little bit here. We got off. We can tell that that's coming up. We also does what Scheels got going on with any? Is there any? You guys got any hunting stuff or get ready for archery season stuff coming up, or what do you guys have on deck for that?
Oh man, we've got a little bit of everything. So we're very deep into the fishing stuff right now.
Okay.
You know, it's definitely like prime
Well, we can-
fishing season. We just had our fishing sale. You know, at the beginning of May here, I guess. But there's still a lot of still a lot of great items out there right now. Most people have their their electronics dialed, and now mostly it's like fishing lures and fishing rods and certain stuff like that. A lot of there we go, right there.
Yep.
Technique specific stuff right now. Still doing really good on our inventory, but yeah, we're kind of on the cusp of that hunting stuff. We have what's called hunt fests. Each store will have, not every store, but most stores will have their own, whether it's like in the hunting section or in a tent outside in the parking lot. There's just a lot of cool stuff. We'll have like speakers coming, we'll have certain deals on gear, and it's just a great time to get there and talk with your Scheels people about hunting, about maybe some gear. A lot of like-minded people there talking about it. So that's just a great time, and then our annual hunting sales will be happening too, right before it's time for those actual seasons.
Nice.
So yeah, just a lot happening right now and a lot on the horizon. There's always something going on at Scheels.
So fishing wise, what are you seeing flying off the shelves for what are the fishermen using right now?
So right now, I mean, like, there's a lot of that soft plastic stuff that's been doing really well, especially like spring, early summer stuff. Things like the Northland Eye Candy, the new drip minnow from Berkeley, the paddle tail version of it. A lot of that stuff's doing really good. Kalen's always does really well. I got to shout out the Scheels Outfitters line of plastics. There's a lot of great stuff. I've caught so many fish on a pro swimmer, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I love that paddle tail. A lot of that stuff, and now it's a little bit more transitioning into your summer fishing, whether it's spinner rigs or crankbaits. It's just about jig and wrap season. I don't know when you guys are gonna put this out, but like once those water temps hit like 70 degrees, like you won't find me throwing much else other than a jigging wrap because I love that so much. Just like pitching to individual fish, that's awesome. Those Acme or search baits, those are going to become super effective right now. Drop shot stuff, that's all like walleye things, like bass too. Like frogs are going to be really good now. Like some of your top water stuff, your swim jigs. Jerk baits have been selling really well right now. It's kind of the season for that. That's good. There's a million different things, and the key with that is just like making sure you have the right rod reel setup to get impart the correct action for those certain baits. So it's like if you're trying to do a Ned rig with a medium heavy bait caster, you're not going to have a good time.
No.
Have the right equipment for the right application is huge. So it's an easy way to get a lot of rods and reels in the boat,
Yep.
but you can justify it at the same time saying, you know, like I'm far more efficient with it. I can just grab it and be ready to go. You know, like if you're throwing a plastic at something and it's not working, like let's switch to the drop shot. Let me put a leech on a drop shot right in its face and see if it resists that. So, and you're gonna want different rods to do those different things. So,
Yes.
yeah,
Slip
that's
bobber
a
with a leech
lot
has
of what's
been,
going on right now.
yeah. And we've been using, you talk about different rods, like a slip bobber rig with a leech on it, or a crawler or whatever. You got to have that longer rod with that soft action that'll load up when you get that fish, so it just, almost sets the hook for you.
Yep, exactly.
Those have been
And
deadly
then-
for us.
That and like trolling setups. Like Scheels has an incredible variety of trolling rods, from
Yep.
your real short ones to your long ones that you want to get, so you know, like so you have your proper spacings and your planer boards and your different crankbaits to run at different depths and stuff like that. It's you can spend hours tinkering and finding out your perfect setups and stuff, and you can get some really cool setups and catch them in a variety of different ways.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're almost to lead core season.
Yeah, it's getting there.
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time pulling lead core though, to be honest with you. Like, granted, it's a great way to catch a lot of fish, especially if you're not if you don't fish all the time. But I love throwing jig and wraps. That's my
Yeah.
absolute favorite way to catch fish.
I was gonna say, if you like jigging wraps, you wouldn't like lead core as much.
Yeah,
A little boring.
Exactly. I'm just I'm a little bit ADD with my fishing now. It's like, I'll sit in a bow stand for the entire day, but man, pulling lead core, I don't love it. I love catching fish, but I love casting. Casting is my favorite thing to do. And I spent 30 years fishing without live scope. So like I've developed an understanding of structures and where they're going to be, because like I work in social media. Like if you go to Scheels Outdoors and you write a comment, like I'm going to be the one responding back to you. So there's always all those people out there that are like, oh, it's destroying the fisheries. Oh, it's cheating.
Yeah.
Oh, it's people that don't know how to fish get a live scope and they can fish. It's like you probably haven't fished with it before. It doesn't put fish in the boat, but it does give you so much knowledge of what's going on down there. Whether you want to switch tactics, switch colors, know you're in the right area to have fish. But man, when you throw on a jig and wrap and you see a pod of fish, and then you watch that wrap go right 5-10 foot past them, and then you rip that first one, and then you see them chase it to the bottom, and then the next rip is just straight like you hit a log. It's very tough to beat that.
Yep. Like you mentioned the live scope deal. We've experienced those same comments on our page as well about you're cheating and all this stuff, and they should be banned, and
too easy
on and on and on. And like what we've seen with the live scope is that we've learned so much more about fish on how they behave down there, and that it is, like you said, it doesn't put fish in the boat. What you learn is that only like 2 out of every 40 fish actually want to feed.
Yeah.
Because you see all these fish, and like there's only a few of them that are active. I think people don't understand or didn't maybe realize exactly how many fish were down there before, and that there's only certain ones that want to feed at certain times that are active. We got into a thing on, we were fishing Lake Winnipeg, and people are like, oh, the live spooking the fish. Well, I caught a 28-inch walleye that chased after Jacob's jig 3 times on the live scope. He missed it twice. I put back down there quick, and then I got it, which was a great moment for me.
I hated it.
But
The worst part
so it's hard for me to listen to somebody say, well, the live scope is spooking the fish. I'm like, now, I don't think so. Now, can they feel that beam? Yes, they can sense it, but I think a lot of those fish, they're just, that you see that are going off to the side or veering, they're just doing what a fish does. They're just swimming around doing their thing.
Exactly. And pressure is pressure in general is probably
Yes.
a big thing too. I mean, like, go back 15 years and look at the number of people that were fishing Winnipeg
Yep.
versus the number of people that
Oh
are
my
fishing
gosh.
now. Like,
Such an army.
they've seen every bait known to man down there. So, and you know, they spent their life with lures in front of them, and you know, maybe they bit it once and then they learn, you know, or maybe they don't. I don't know. I don't know the brain of a fish, but you know, pressure in general from like all the traffic above the ice has to be something too.
Oh, for
So
sure.
you can't like say live scope is the cause of it.
No, we were in the out on the. We weren't on the main channel of the Red. We were on another little of the subsidiary channels that go into the Red River, and we were there early, and we were just hammering the fish. I mean, Jacob had his 4 on the ice before I
Yeah.
even had everything set up in the house.
19s. It was just
Love it when that
ridiculous.
happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then the Army started to come out. All of a sudden, you look, and here comes the line of vehicles, and they started setting up all around us and drilling holes, and then it shut down. I mean, it just like you said, the pressure is, you know, it affects the fish. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's one thing with Winnipeg is like it's a giant bowl. There's not a ton of structure, unless like you're finding areas real close to shore that might have structure. But you know, generally it's a giant bowl, and your structure is like pressure ridges and things like that. So you know, getting away from people is often more important than finding where you think is the perfect spot, because like there's a lot of fish in that lake. So if you can get away from people and get on pods of fish that you know maybe haven't seen bait for a little while and are active, that can be, you know, that can be the difference between catching 10 fish or catching 100 fish that day.
yeah, even in the summertime, this last weekend, that's what we were doing out in the boat, was staying away from the crowd, finding the walleyes on the live scope, and we were actually going through them with, you know, slow death crawler rigs, 6-foot fluorocarbon, just real finesse stuff. Just either this like a little bead. I just got this, ordered a bunch more of these from Scheels. These are these slow death VMC hooks that have the swivel in there. You just throw a little bead above those for some color. About a 4 to 6 foot fluorocarbon leader on that with a bottom bouncer or a small weight, whatever you can do. We would see the fish. You just drive right by them, and you know we were loading them up.
Yeah, those are almost cheat codes when it comes into those summer months. Those slow death rigs. There's something about that wobble that really lures them in.
Yeah, they. I almost didn't want to tell people that, but we're here to share the success and to share. We want people to be successful. We want people to fill the freezer and have a good time. And
Well, even last year we
Absolutely.
were.
I feel that same way all the time. It's like, man, this is something that people need to know about, but I don't necessarily want to tell people.
right.
But yeah, at the end of the day, it's about getting out and enjoying the outdoors and learning new things and having different experiences. Like, that's only going to be a positive for all of us.
Yeah, we made a video last year on Lake of the Woods. We were using bottom bouncers with plastics. We weren't using live bait on the hooks.
Eye candy.
Eye
Yep.
candy.
Eye
and
candy
we were just
is,
smoking them. And people
Yep.
are upset. They're like, why are you telling people this? That's the comments were, don't be showing this.
yeah.
'Cause-
Yeah, that's almost like the first people that started talking about using Ned rigs for walleye. It's like, oh, that's a bass tactic, but man, it works for walleye too. Same with like drop shots.
Yep. I got a friend that says walleye doesn't know he's not a bass.
Yeah, you know there is a lot to that. You
Yeah,
know,
there
it's
is.
Like I spent my early years like fishing with my parents, and all we would do is pull spinners and like jigs and finesse tactics and stuff. And it's like you can catch them that way, but then when you get into the summer months, then it gets difficult. You know, and then
Yep.
you know, like I started having a little bit more of a bass mentality, especially like I think the first time I like really started getting into aggressive walleye tactics was we did a podcast with John Hoyer. It was
Yep.
probably at this point it was probably like 4 years ago maybe, and he was talking about ripping champ swimmers through the weeds when everybody else was going out and pulling like lead core and like and crankbaits and stuff like that, and how many fish stay, how many big walleyes stay in the weeds shallow
In the
even
summer.
through the summer months.
Yeah.
So it's like they're harder to catch. You have to have a different tactic.
Yep.
You know, and like it's just more fun to me. You know, granted,
Oh, yeah.
it's fun to catch a limit of walleye pulling spinners, but when you're casting it into the weeds and like ripping weeds off, and like you either get a fish or you get weeds. You know,
Yep.
that's a lot of fun. That reminds me of last year. I was doing jigging wraps. I was on the edge of this weed line, and I would try and pitch. I'd try and like live scope and find right where the weeds quit, and I would cast, and I'd try and hit the edge of it. And you know, I'd pull a few here and there, but it was never like hot and heavy. And then I remember once like was like off in my equilibrium or like my direction or whatever, and I chucked a jigging wrap like a number 9 way into the weeds, and I'm like, oh, this isn't good. So like, and then it hit bottom, and I was like weeds, and then I would like aggressively rip it out of there.
Yep.
And then like my second rip, all of a sudden, bam! I'm like,
Yep.
holy crap! And it was a 27-inch walleye. So like,
Yep.
I was like, the weeds quit at like 17, and I accidentally cast it into like 12, and I pulled a 27-inch walleye out of there. I'm like, okay, there's something to this. So I'm like, all right, I did it again, and I got weeds on the next one. But then the next one, I got like a 20-incher, and I'm like, okay, they are in the weeds, and they want aggressive baits. And you know, like, I tried throwing things that would be a little more efficient to like not get gunked up, and I wasn't catching anything. So I put the jigging wrap back on, and it's like, well, I just need to accept that I'm either going to get full of weeds or I'm going to catch a fish and it's going to attack it. So, and you know, stacked them up pretty quick that way. So just like thinking outside the box on stuff like that can be a really effective way to catch fish in these upcoming months.
For sure. Jacob, do you remember when we did this on Lake of the Woods? It was, I think like 2 years ago.
Yep.
And I remember this because Jacob was so afraid, because same just like you're talking about, I was zigzagging in and out of these little weed pockets. Like we'd find a pocket inside the weeds that was big, and you know, probably like 50 yards in between wheat beds, and we were sitting there with the trolling motor, and we'd go by these, and just like you said, we were actually pulling spinners in the weeds. So you talk about having to pull cabbage off all the time, but if you weren't in the weeds, just like you said, all of a sudden, boom! I mean, we got our limit of fish. And it was like an hour and a half, and then we got out of there because we didn't want anybody to know where we were or what we were doing. I didn't want everyone else was all out deep in like 20 and 30 feet of water, sitting out there jigging and
this was
doing
in
stuff.
August.
Yeah, this was
like late in the summer, hot.
Hot.
It was, and we were 4 to 6 feet of water, like they were in there.
Yeah,
it's amazing how it works that way.
When you find them there. You know, but you think about it, they got shade. There's lots of forage in there. You know, I'm sure that jigging wrap just looked like a school of little perch or something coming by. You know.
Yep, exactly.
So yeah, you gotta the old rules of, you know, people think that fish do certain things. Oh, Lake of the Woods, the fish all move out deep in the summertime. No, they don't.
And usually
Granted, a
we
lot
didn't
of
even
them do, but not all of them.
Not all of them.
And there's
never
a
even
lot
fished late
of fish
summer.
in that lake.
We'd get ready for deer season around August. We'd be going out west, trail cameras and stuff, and we had a buddy who was like, "Well, I want to come fishing. I know it's late, but let's go it." And we tried it, and we're like, "Oh my gosh, they're in shallow. They're everywhere."
Yeah, we just tried it it was close to the boat ramp, and I was like, well, let's just see if there's anything in here. Because I'd heard kind of the same deal. I don't know if I heard that, you know, that podcast of Hoyer or who it was, but I remember people talking about fishing that weed line edge just like you were, you know, in summertime with plastics, actually. And I was like, well, if they're going to hit plastics, they're going to hit a spinner with a big fat crawler on it, too, so...
Yeah, amen to that.
You know, there's just so much to do and so much fun out there, and it's a shame we got to work so much, but that's how it goes.
I know.
Yeah. Well, Mike, we'll end this on a good note here. Is there anything that you would recommend for people? Well, getting closer to hunting season here. What can they do? What are some couple of tips and tactics that you'd recommend? With Scheels or just yourself, that they get ready for deer season to wrap it up.
Oh boy, I could talk for a long time on that, but
Yeah.
I'll give
We'll
you
save that for the next one, too.
version. I like to get my cameras out around the 4th of July, so you can start seeing growth of the deer and like be able to know which one's which. So, dust those cameras off, check out the new Tacticams that are coming out, look at the new revolver if you've got a food plot that you want to see everything instead of just 45 degrees. Shoot your bow. Just shoot.
Shoot your bow.
Yeah, there's a lot of great things out there. Like I could talk till I'm blue in the face about all the different arrows and accessories and options, but at the end of the day, like, get a bow, start shooting with it, build your confidence, start developing a pattern on those animals, or figuring out where you want to go, whether it's on Onyx or something. In your downtime, watch some videos, get hyped, just have fun with it.
Yep.
And bring a kid if you get a chance, especially if you're scouting and stuff like that. Oh, Sig Sauer's got a really nice new spotting scope with image stabilization.
Really?
Saw that
Oscar
today.
6. Look into that one. Especially if you hunt out west, it's a game changer. So, other than that, just take time to enjoy it.
Awesome.
Perfect. Well said. Well, thank you again, Mike. This has been awesome. Love to
Yeah,
have you on
thank you
again.
very much for your time. I appreciate
We'll
it.
talk
being
more.
on there.
So, yeah. Thank you, and thanks for watching. God bless everyone. Peace out.